Hi, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of Tuesday Talks, where we explore the discussion of tools, open data standards, and data management. In this episode, our host, Alex Gostev, sits down with our very special guest from Spain to discuss the adoption of open data standards like DCAT and their impact on interoperability and collaboration. So, Alex, the virtual mic is yours.
Thanks, Case. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex. Today, we're joined by Adria, a leading contributor to open data technology. As a senior solution architect at Link Digital and core maintainer of CKAN, Adria has spent over 15 years making data more accessible and useful. His work has shaped how governments and organizations worldwide share their data. Welcome to the show, Adria.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Hey, why don't we start by you telling us what DCAT is?
Yes, of course. DCAT stands for Data Catalog Vocabulary, and it's a standard. It's a W3C standard, recommendation that essentially provides a common set of properties and vocabularies to describe data on the internet, more specifically on data catalogs that provide data. Essentially, there are lots of sites on the internet and catalogs that publish data online, but we want all these different sites to be able to understand the data that they publish in a common format, in a common way. So DCAT provides the specification, like the framework for catalogs and websites to describe the data in a common way that all of them understand.
Great, thanks, Adria. So that's a very clear description. When you said a way for websites to communicate or systems to communicate, I know this word interoperability. So it should be it. And the question is, so this interoperability word is a big thing because I'm hearing it all the time in data portal world and open data world.
Yeah.
So how it helps with data discoverability, how it helps in general.
Okay. So basically, interoperability, it's like a big word that essentially means that different systems play well together. So like the actual implementations of data catalogs or data publishing systems might be different. There are many different systems and implementations, but we want that the output or the external APIs and external interfaces that they expose to the other systems, they are published in a way that they are understandable by these other systems. So you can have a data set with a title, description, and some keywords, but if your system calls it name, notes, and tags, the other system might not know what exactly it is. So if we all agree in a common standards to say, yes, keywords will be described with this property, will be named like this, and maybe they can be just designed with this control vocabulary. So you can only use these particular values to describe this keyword. Then it's much easier for other systems to consume your metadata or your data, or for you to understand other systems and increase discoverability of metadata and building all kinds of workflows and data pipelines on top of that.
Great, Adria. That's interesting. So basically, it's the common language. It's like we're speaking English right now. I'm Ukrainian, you're Spanish, but we're using English. And the same for machines, right? So DCAT provides the common way to communicate between systems. Okay, I got it. So it leads us into AI, because AI is the machine consumer, right? So how DCAT can support AI and machine learning initiatives?
Right. So, I mean, I don't specifically know about like direct integrations of DCAT with AI systems, but essentially any machine learning pipeline or metadata consumption is going to benefit for having well-structured metadata, because one of the, or not one of the kind of essentially critical points of machine learning models are the data that it is trained on. So if people building models or enriching existing base models with existing metadata, the more well described and the more well defined this metadata is, the more specific they can be in their fine tuning or tweaking, or even automating the ingestion of metadata in these kinds of models. There's a big emphasis on volume. So it's not the same having to manually curate or clean up data sources than being able to describe entire catalogs that are well described using DCAT or other vocabularies or standards. And so I would say that the main benefit is, of course, in the kind of discoverability and ingestion of data for the training of models. But again, that's not my area of expertise. So
Right.
again.
Right. But thanks. But your perspective is very important because you're coming from the supply side, because machine learning engineer needs data pipeline to build the models.
Yeah.
Data engineering part. Thanks, Adria. What are basic steps for organization to take to start using DCAT?
So aside from like the interoperability benefit of publishing data in a standard way, I find a lot of value in DCAT for organizations that are starting their kind of internal data journey, in that it just provides a good starting framework to just initiate the discussions about, okay, what do we need to describe our own internal metadata? You're not just starting from zero, from scratch. You have like an already defined set of vocabularies and properties that you can pick and choose, and you can adopt gradually. I mean, the whole DCAT standard are like dozens and dozens of properties, which is probably not what an organization like starting, like defining their own metadata schemas needs. But if they can identify, okay, these are the recommended ones, let's start with description, keywords like the publisher, provenance information, etc., and then gradually increment and enrich our own metadata schemas based on internal feedback from publishers, our own implementation, growing pains, etc. So I think it's a really good resource in terms of, okay, we want to be better at classifying and describing our metadata. Let's pick this standard, which is already in use and in place and used in many different systems, and pick and choose whatever we need to start being DCAT compliant. I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah, thanks. That's clear. So, inferring from the conversation we have already, is it a global standard? Can I use it in different parts of the world?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. So the DCAT standard itself is not circumscribed to any specific area. What the DCAT specification allows is for the creation of application profiles, which is essentially more targeted specifications for specific domains. For instance, what is known as DCAT-AP, DCAT application profile. It is a bit confusing, but it's like the profile for data catalogs in Europe, in the European Union, which is, again, it's like taking DCAT, but make it more specific to the data portals from Europe. And that means maybe adding extra properties, or for properties which are defining on DCAT, just mandating that these need to be used, need to be defined the specific vocabularies that the European Union publishes, or specific guidance on which ones to use and which ones not to use, or what the cardinality of each of them, which essentially means whether you need to define one or more or of each of the properties. And there are, for instance, similar profiles for data catalogs in the United States for the United States government, which is called DCAT US. And even then, there are more specific ones. For instance, in the case of Europe, each individual country that's publishing their national open data portals will have their own national DCAT-AP profile for their own specific needs, which further defines and gives more clear guidance to data portals on that particular country for how to publish their data. And another interesting thing is that application profiles are not, I mean, they can be just regional, like the ones I mentioned, but also domain specific. So there are other application profiles we enrich DCAT and extend it to describe data from a particular domain area. For instance, there's the geo DCAT specification for describing geospatial data, DCAT-AP for statistical data, etc.
Okay, so these AP profiles, they are sort of templates. So if I'm from pharmaceutical or from government-related industries, are they sort of industry specific? So I have something to start from, or how it works?
Yes. The ones I know are more like field specific, like more, I mean, wider. But for instance, aside from the ones that I mentioned, there's a relatively recent one in Europe called Health DCAT-AP, which is specific for the health science and the health industry domain or area. I assume that these application profiles come from within the same industry, where they identify, okay, maybe the wider application profiles available are too inspecific, are too wide. We need to make them more clear, extend them with these properties and these classes that will allow us to describe our own metadata, which has its own specific domain needs, etc. And we can use our specific vocabularies, etc. So basically, it's from a more like the more generic global one, which is like the DCAT W331. We can go to the more specific domain specific ones. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Adria. So it sounds like necessary rules, legislation, whatever, is already into this DCAT through the specific profile. Am I getting it anywhere near?
I mean, I come to it from more the technical implementation side of it, which essentially it's about, okay, what do I need to expose? What do I need to consume to be compatible? But obviously, all these it comes in the wider context of an initiative that includes legislation to mandate that this DCAT application profile needs to be used, from a community side of a community of practice of people using it that provides feedback and it makes evolve like the different versions of the standard. Excuse me. So yeah, I mean, like the actual that needs to be implemented in a catalog is just one part of like the whole kind of DCAT compliance initiative. That is what like gives value to these initiatives, of course, because otherwise it's just one technical standard.
Okay, great. Thanks for explanations. I feel that conversation is fantastic already. I just one more question, please, on the value bit. So in SAFE framework, which is quite popular now with bigger companies who are going with agility and this motion, It's a way to estimate value for work units. It's like, I can't recall the actual name, but it's like a value lost, how much money or whatever we're losing if we're not implementing this. And this is where I'm coming from. What are risks for not adopting DCAT standards for an organization?
I mean, I would say that the risk is that your data is less discoverable and less interoperable with other systems. That's a direct risk. I mean, the indirect ones, I mean, someone with a more business-oriented mind will be able to tell, but essentially that may be loss of opportunities, and other systems getting value from interaction with other systems and you losing out on this one. I mean, in many cases, DCAT compliance is not like negotiable. So for government, for public institutions in the European Union, I mean, it needs to be done. So it's not like you can choose whether or not to choose it. But I think there's definitely value in, even if you don't have a mandate to adopt it, in at least exploring what will take you to present or expose your data in a standard way using DCAT or other vocabularies or specifications out there.
Okay, so summarizing, CKAN is for standardization, and standardization helps with scaling, and everybody wants scale of the data because scale matters. It's about discoverability of data. It's about interoperability of communicating between different systems. What else are value or benefits that CKAN brings?
DCAT, I guess you mean.
DCAT.
But CKAN also brings value. So anyway, I think, I mean, these are the most direct ones in terms of like purely like exposing DCAT metadata. But another one, I think internally, I think it provides a really good framework for organizations to think about their metadata management, how are they describing their data. It's very likely that if you want to describe a particular aspect of your data, someone has already thought about it, and it's likely that they have a DCAT compliant way of doing it. So it's also about using common standards that there's a community behind it, where someone has found probably your problem that you're facing or the challenge that you're facing, and that maybe you can reuse their approach to it. I think that's another valuable thing to assess whether to adopt it or not.
Okay, thank you. I can't stand the urge to ask you about CKAN and DCAT because it kind of popped out. Just maybe it's the time. So I know that you worked on DCAT within CKAN open source product that is adopted by national, local governments, organizations. So basically, it's the software, the CKAN, and DCAT is the standard, and you're the guy between these two. So is it released? Is it published? What?
Yes.
What are the benefits of implementing CKAN to get DCAT? Kind of all this area. Please, Adria.
Sure. So, CKAN is one of these systems that publish data, and to adopt and to provide DCAT support, it's done via one of these extensions that CKAN has lots of plugins and extensions that you can incorporate to your site to provide extra functionality. So I've done a lot of work on one called CKAN DCAT that, as its name implies, provides support for, first of all, exposing the CKAN metadata in a DCAT compliant way, and then also consuming DCAT metadata from other systems. The main goal of this extension is to remove all the complexity in the implementation side of things. I mean, like DCAT itself is just a specification, a standard list of properties, but the way in which these are translated into actual files that systems consume is RDF, or semantic data, which is like a whole like huge like field of knowledge and technology. But what we try to do on this extension is to hide all this complexity, and just by implementing your own metadata schema in CKAN with like the UI form or via the API, etc., all this is automatically exposed in a semantic way, in a way that is compliant with DCAT. So we have support for built-in support for different profiles, like the European ones and the US ones that we were talking about before. And there's a community of site maintainers and site developers. It's not just me that is contributing improvements and fixing bugs to this extension. So basically, site maintainers have DCAT compliance almost out of the box when running a CKAN instance, and we're working, and it supports things like multilingual metadata, integration with other CKAN extensions like the spatial one, different formats for serialization, etc., harvesting from other systems, etc. So I think essentially it's like providing this DCAT compliance needs integrated in an already running CKAN site that has, of course, many other features and many other needs from a site maintainer point of view.
Great. So support for DCAT out of the box. Sounds great.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like, I mean, you have to do some work, but it's the same work that you will do basically to describe, to define your metadata standard, sort of your metadata specification, your schemas, etc.
Thanks, Adria. I think we got a great conversation.
Yeah, I think it was great. Great points.
So that wraps up the third episode of Tuesday Talks. A special thanks to Alex and Adria for sharing their insights on DCAT and CKAN. So stay tuned for more conversations. Until next time. Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.